Good evening, everyone. My name is Jimmy DeAndre, and I have the honor of serving as the new principal here at Cheltenham High School. And I just want to welcome all of you this evening and thank you for making time for this very important conversation. I know that some families may not be able to be here this evening, so this will be recorded and then posted on our website so that this can be accessed at a later date as well. We're very fortunate to have two of our outstanding counselors to be able to share this information with you this evening. And throughout the evening, Ms. Martin will share more about how you can ask questions as we go. So I just want to give a huge thank you to Ms. Martin and Mr. DiPiero for being here this evening for this conversation. And I will now turn it over to Ms. Martin.
Thank you, Mr. DeAndrea. I am Ms. Martin. I am one of the counselors here at Cheltenham High School. Mr. DiPiero is here. He will be assisting me tonight. So if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to ask questions in the chat. Mr. DiPiero will be answering those questions in the chat. And there will be another Q&A section towards the end, but please don't hesitate to ask in the meantime. We are going to be talking about the college application process tonight. I just wanted to go over the counselor list first. If your student's last name is between A through CAN, Ms. Vargas is the counselor. CAO to FUL is Mr. DiPiero right here. FUM to HOO is Ms. Cohen. Many of you may know that Ms. Cohen will be out for the semester until January, so Mr. Turan will be filling in for Ms. Cohen during that time. Dr. Trandor has students with the last name HOP to MIT. Myself, I have MIU to SAU, and Mr. Bryant has SCI to Z. Please feel free to reach out to us if you have any questions after this presentation as well. So to get started, let's talk about some things that we need to prepare to get this process going. The first thing to do is to start an organization system, a to-do list, a spreadsheet, a chart, something that works for you, because the recommendation will be to apply to about 4 to 8 colleges, and each school will have its own set of requirements, whether it is the number of essays that you have to submit, the number of recommendations, et cetera. And we'll get into that a little bit later, but they will each have their own sets of requirements. And so it's good to kind of keep track of what you have done so far and what still needs to be done, because until everything gets submitted for that school, your application will not be considered to be complete. But also, let's focus on grades and attendance this year. You're not finished yet. Seniors tend to get senioritis. You know, they're exhausted. They've been in school since kindergarten, so it's a lot. But I just want to remind families that although your application is going to include your transcript from grades 9 to 11, we still submit grades for your senior year. So your transcript will show what classes you're in now. And then at the end of the year, we send a final transcript. So schools will look at your final transcript. So we just want to make sure you stay aligned with what your transcript from grades 9 to 11 look like. The other thing that I want you to keep in mind, especially now that we're still working on schedules right now, is that if once you submit your application and you have on your transcript classes that you're taking, if you drop a class that's after that time that you've submitted an initial transcript, you may have to answer to your school as to why you've dropped a class or why you've leveled down from like AP to honors or honors to our enriched classes. So if you are thinking about changing something, this is the time to do it, because once you submit your application, you may have to answer for those changes. And right now, what we're doing is we're hosting some college rep visits. This is a great time for you to get that in. If you are interested in a school and say, for example, the school is not, the physical location isn't close by, most of those schools are having representatives attend a visit at our school, whether it's in person or virtually. And even if they are close by, maybe you want to do the rep visit before you do an official tour. So students can find the rep visits by going onto Naviance, and there is a list under colleges. And then if you click on rep visits, then you can sign up for them. We're also sending out notifications every week. So of what schools will be here that week. So please either yourself or have your students look out for that information. The other thing we want you to do that you should think about right now is to clean up your social media. Schools will look at your social media sites. We have seen where schools have questioned students about things that they've seen on their social media. You want it to reflect who you are or who you want them to see when you apply. So almost look at it as like a professional aspect. If you don't want a job to see certain things, you don't also want these schools to see certain things as well. So clean it up just in case they look, because schools have been known to look at social media pages, even on those, what do they call it, Finsta pages, because sometimes they can still find pages associated to you, even if it's not your main page. But as I mentioned, we're going to try to finalize a list of 4 to 8 colleges to apply to. So there's a lot that needs to be done, and we'll kind of go over everything. We'll talk about how to send SAT and ACT scores, how to request transcripts, letters of recommendations, how to track it. But most importantly, if your student is an athlete, then please make sure that they register with the NCAA by going to eligibilitycenter.org. And then if they're planning to go to a D1 or D2 school, they can work with their counselor to make sure all of the documents are submitted and everything is done on our end as well. But it is important for the student to have that conversation with their counselor, because counselors don't automatically know which students are involved in which sports. All right, so as I mentioned, college rep visits, you can sign up on it through Naviance. They will be coming in both in person and virtual. I believe, all right, we had one today. We have some throughout the week. We will mainly do them we will try to avoid Wednesdays because Wednesdays are our early dismissal days, but we have several schools already signed up through the end of October. We will continue to do them throughout the fall. But it is really a good idea to sign up for those visits. The good thing is that most times the rep that attends the visit is the one that will be reviewing the student's application. So show up with questions, not ones that you can find the answer to online. Show that you've really done your research, that you're really interested in the school. Ask questions that that could be tied to something academic or something that, again, you can't find online. Students sometimes ask, how should they dress? I always say, you don't have to dress like you're coming to an interview, but you do want to dress in a way that will be presentable for that representative. There is a procedure, as I said, to register. So when you go into Naviance, you do have to sign up for it. And then we do ask that you do it 24 hours in advance. However, if you say you learn about it that day, that's fine, still sign up, but have a conversation with your teacher first. Make sure that your teacher is okay with you missing class, because say, for example, if there's going to be a quiz or a test, that will take precedence over the rep visit. And we will help you reconnect with a rep. We have had multiple situations in the past where a rep will then reach out to a student individually if they're unable to attend the rep visit. And we now have a QR code so that you can use to sign up for the rep visit, which is located on the door of the counseling suite. And this is just a little graphic of how to sign up for it. So you're going to go to colleges right here at the top tab to the right, and then you're going to click on college visits. And then here you'll see the list of schools that will be coming. Now, this is an older list. As you see, it says 2018, but it's just a graphic for you to see of like what schools will be coming. Now to the good stuff, applying to college. What you want to do before you submit any application, before you do anything, is you want to know what that process will look like. Each school has different requirements. And so you want to be aware of deadlines, because you don't want to miss deadlines, of course. You want to be aware of the course requirements of things that maybe you needed to take this year. So for example, if a school says you need 3 years of a language, but you've only taken 2, well, then maybe we can see what we can do to get you that 3rd year, or what we can do to talk to that school to see what other options you have. So make sure you have those prerequisites and those admissions requirements down, that you know what documents you need, how many essays you need. Some may just use one general essay. Some may have a 2nd or 3rd essay that you need to submit. Make sure you're aware of what those requirements are. You can actually submit an application once you're ready through either going to the school's website, using the Common App or the Coalition app. The Common App and the Coalition app are very similar, where it's almost like, I call it like a one-stop shop. You can apply to multiple schools by using the Common App. The Coalition app is not as widely used as the Common App, but it's a very similar process. But the Common App is widely used. Most schools do allow you to apply to them through the Common App. There are still a few schools that require you to apply through their website, but you're going to essentially put in your information one time, and then you're going to then add on the information that each individual school wants you to apply to. So you don't have to go to 5 different websites. You can do it all through the Common App. We will be working on personal essays in English class, because that will be a large part of your application. So if you have English in the 1st semester, that will be an assignment. That will be one of your first assignments that you should complete for that course. And your English teacher will help you through that process. However, once we moved over to block scheduling, we recognize that there are students who don't have English until the 2nd semester. So what do we do for them? We are going to be offering an evening tutoring session with English teachers. And what they will do is work with you either virtually or however you set up your appointment with them. And there will be more information coming. I don't have all of the details just yet, but I do know that we will be having those tutoring sessions with English teachers to help you work on your college essay. And even if you are having an English class in your 1st semester and you want some additional support in that English tutoring session, you can sign up for it then too. It's not exclusive to students who have English in the 2nd semester. So in addition to submitting your essay, you will also need to send SAT scores or ACT scores. So a lot of schools are still test optional, which was a process that more students became privy to or began adopting once COVID hit, and then they kind of just kept it. And so SAT optional essentially means that you have the choice of whether or not you want to send SAT scores. Some schools, I want you to be aware, because some schools don't necessarily apply SAT optional to everything. So you need to know what you're getting into when you decide to choose SAT optional or not. So for example, there are schools who may say that they'll take SAT optional for admissions purposes. But if you want to be considered for a merit scholarship, they may need your SAT scores. So if their website doesn't show you that specific information, reach out to the admissions rep. That could be a good question that you ask at a rep visit. What does SAT optional truly mean? Are there limitations to it? Or are there limitations to my application if I don't submit my SAT scores? And ACT scores, same thing. It just falls under whether or not you took the SAT or the ACT. The other thing that you want to submit to schools are transcripts and recommendations. So we will be using Naviance to do that, because Naviance is the way we communicate with schools. And we'll talk about what that looks like, I'll show you how to request them through Naviance. But one of the other things that you want to look for when you view the admissions requirements of the schools that you're interested in is knowing what those options are. What are those deadlines? If a school offers rolling admissions, that means that they accept applications throughout the year. That means that they usually will give a decision within 4 to 6 weeks after you apply. So whether you apply in December or whether you apply in April, doesn't really matter, because there's no deadline. You'll get a decision 4 weeks from December or 4 weeks from April. But if there's regular decision, there's a deadline that's usually set. And you receive a decision on their decision deadline. So for example, let's just say the deadline is January 10th. If you apply in October, or if you apply January 9th, you still met that deadline. And if their release date of their decision is in April, it doesn't matter if you've applied in December or in January, you're going to get your decision in April. Now, if there is early action or early decision, that's different. Early action is usually a date of October, November. Some schools do allow early action in December, but essentially what it is saying is that whether there's a rolling admissions or a regular decision date, if they offer the early action option as well, then you're going to apply earlier, October or November, and you receive a decision earlier. It's recommended that if a school that you're applying to offers early action, that you use this option. It gives you a smaller pool of applicants that you're going against. And it also shows the school that you're interested, you're serious about this school. Early action is not non-binding, so it doesn't, there's no commitment. You can apply to as many early action schools as you'd like and get as many early decisions as you like. However, if you apply restricted early action, then I need you to know that while that's not binding as well, you cannot apply to other early action or early decision schools. So that means that you can only choose that one to apply to. You don't have to commit to them, but you can't apply to other early actions. Now you can apply regularly through rolling or regular admissions, but you wouldn't be able to do early action or early decision. An early decision is a very similar process, except you can only apply to one school early decision, and that decision is binding. So therefore, if you get accepted to that school that you apply early decision, you have to withdraw all other applications, rolling, regular, early action. You can only apply, you would have to withdraw all other applications, because essentially what you're saying is that if you get accepted to a school that you've applied early decision to, you intend to go there. While they can't do anything if you decide to change your mind, know that schools do communicate with one another. And so you don't want to sign up for or apply through early decision and then try to take that back. One thing to think about that I inform my students is when they want to think about early decision, think about finances as well. Because if you apply to a school early decision and they accept you, but say another school that maybe your second choice accepts you and they give you more scholarship money, then you will be turning down that extra scholarship money to attend the school that you apply to through early decision. So if you're going to choose that route, make sure that you really intend to attend that school. When you apply early decision, there's a form that needs to be signed by both the parent and the counselor. So there's more discussion that can be had through that process if necessary. Okay, now, in addition to knowing what application requirements are necessary, there's a few things that we need you to do on our end as well, and things that you need to know. So there's going to be a release of records form provided to the students tomorrow. We will be having the same presentation with our seniors tomorrow during homeroom. So please make sure you let your students know, especially if they have late arrival, make sure they know to be here for homeroom tomorrow. And so when we meet with them, we will give them the release of records form. There's also, we'll be able to send it to you electronically as well. That release of records form, once we receive that back signed, then that gives us permission to communicate with colleges. So in other words, it gives us permission to send out your students' transcripts. If we don't have that form signed, even if you request transcripts, we will not be able to submit your transcripts to the schools without that form. When you submit applications, be aware that there are usually an application fee, usually around $50 to $75 per school that you're applying to. You'll more than likely need to submit an essay. Some schools require a resume. So those are some things that I just want you to be aware of as you start your application process, because those will be things that you need to either prepare or gather. If you qualify or receive free and reduced lunch, there is a fee waiver that you can use to apply to schools that through the Common App. So there are some other schools, like if you apply directly to their website, sometimes schools will give fee waivers then as well. But the fee waiver is mainly applicable for Common App applications. Once you start your Common App and you start entering your information through Naviance, you will have to complete your FERPA. Your FERPA is, it will be signed for each school that you apply to. And essentially what you're saying is either I waive or I don't waive my rights to see my letters of recommendation. Now, that choice is totally up to you. However, what we have learned is that if you say, I want to see my college letters of recommendation, it kind of gives that idea or thought that, are you hiding something? Is there a reason why you need to see your letters of recommendation? So just keep that in mind when you, as you decide what you would like to do. And that's really only when you're using the Common App. You will also need to have your SAT or ACT scores sent to colleges. That is not something that your counselors do. So you can go to the college board or to the ACT website, and you can request to get your scores sent if you choose to send them. I believe it's about $12 a report. So if you're going to send them to multiple schools, it's $12 for each school. And then letters of recommendation, we'll go into that as well, but you will do that through Naviance and as well as your transcript. So what is Naviance? Naviance is a platform similar, like I'm sure you're aware of PowerSchool or Canvas, where basically all information is there. So Naviance is our post-secondary platform, and it's most schools use communicate through Naviance. So we use that to send your transcripts. So your requests will be put in through Naviance, but we also send your transcripts through Naviance. We will also send letters of recommendations through Naviance. It's our way of communicating with the colleges. So if both students and parents should have access to Naviance. However, if your student doesn't know their username would be the year of graduation, which is 23, the first letter of their first name, and then their last name. Whatever their username is for PowerSchool, for their email, it's the same thing for Naviance. However, what's different is that students can create their own password for Naviance. So if they don't know it, there's a tool there for you to reset your password, or they can email their counselor and we can reset it for them as well. I always say to wait a few minutes and refresh the screen because it does take some time. They'll send you a temporary password. Students will go put the temporary password in and then they'll say it's not working. Well, give it a few minutes for it to communicate with its system as well. Refresh the screen and then try it. And if that doesn't work, then please send your student to their counselor. And as a parent, if you need your information, contact their counselor. We can either reset it and send it out to you or tell you what it is. Now, as I mentioned, we need a release of records form. You will know if you've submitted your release of records form, because if you haven't, you will get this yellow bar across the top that basically says we don't have consent for you to request the records. And if you see that, that means that we don't have your release of records form on file. If you sent it, please give us about 2 days to update it, because we will be getting a handful at a time. And, there's only so much that we can handle at a time. So give us about 2 days. And if after 2 days it's still saying that, please have your student reach out to their counselor or to our counseling secretary, Ms. Sutherland. She's in the counseling suite. Also, if you haven't matched your Common App, then that's something else that you're going to need to do. And you'll see that red line. And essentially what that's saying is that you're syncing your Common App to your Naviance so that they can communicate to one another as well. Nothing can be sent until these 2 things are done. So letters of recommendations, transcripts, they cannot be sent until those 2 things are done. And the other thing is, if you I have seen in the past where students have received the matching where they said they've matched and they didn't. And so I did notice that. I think it has to do, that's more on the Common App side. So have your student come down to the counselor and we can walk them through how to do that. Now, once that's done, you can request transcripts. So what you would do is click on at the top of the Naviance top of the toolbar, there is going to be a tool or a tab that says colleges I'm applying to. Once you click on that, you will click on request transcripts. You'll see that there if everything is done. Then what you're going to do is you're going to identify how you're applying to the school. So are you applying, and that will be here, are you applying through Common App or are you applying directly to the school? That'll be a drop down that you can choose. If you're applying through Common App, we need to know that. And if you're not applying through Common App, we need to know that as well, because that will affect how we submit your transcripts to the schools. Then you're going to choose what type of transcript you're requesting. It will be your initial transcript. Final is when you're at the end of your senior year and we're sending your final transcript to your schools. So you will only be requesting initial. And then where are you sending the transcripts? Most times you're going to say to the schools that I'm applying to and all future schools. Sometimes you may want to just send it to a certain school, one specific school. That is fine as well. But to make it easier, just have it sent to all schools, because all of them are going to need it. So that's just a one-stop shop way of getting them sent to every Common App school that you submit your application to. Now, teacher recommendations, same thing. You're going to find out, you're going to request them through Naviance. Find out when you look at your application requirements, how many letters of recommendations do the colleges need? There are some schools that don't require letters of recommendations at all. There are some that will say, I need teachers' letters of recommendations. And then there will some that will be, I need teachers and counselors. So it's important to not only know how many recommendations are needed, but which types of recommendations are needed. Find out what the minimum is and the maximum. If you need a teacher letter of recommendation, you want to try to use an 11th grade teacher or a teacher that teaches the subject that maybe you're applying to. So for example, if your major is going to be biology, you may want your biology teacher to write your letter of recommendation. But before you even request that letter of recommendation in Naviance, talk to the teacher first. Find out that that's something that they can do. I usually say, explain to them why you're asking them, kind of give them like a hint of this. I'm asking you because you were able to recognize that I was a leader in your classroom, give them like a hint, this is why I'm asking you, this is what I want you to put in my letter. But talk to them, have that conversation with them, ask them if they're willing to do it, tell them, deadlines of when you need them, etc. And then once they say, yes, I can write that letter of recommendation, then you're going to request it through Naviance by first adding the colleges that you're applying to. So once you add them, there's a colleges that I'm thinking about tab, and then there's a colleges I'm applying to tab, and you're going to add them to the colleges I'm applying to tab, and then you're going to request letters of recommendation. Now, don't request it through Common App. When you apply through Common App, there is an option to request letters of recommendations. It does say, like, if your school uses Naviance, don't use this option, but sometimes students don't see that. Or it sometimes asks if you want to add someone as a collaborator. That is not a process that we use. So make sure you don't do that, because then it takes time to remove that and it puts a delay in the process. So just do it through Naviance, not Common App. Once you submit that official request through Naviance, allow the teacher a minimum of 2 weeks to write their letter of recommendation. Teachers are going to be bombarded with students pretty soon, asking for letters of recommendation. So they have to do that in addition to all of their other responsibilities. So it may take time, and they want to put really thoughtful effort into your letters, and you don't want them to, and they don't want to just write a letter just for timing. So make sure you give them enough time to write the letter, and not from the time that you have a conversation, but from the time that you make the official request through Naviance. And then once you do that and they write your letter of recommendation, once you decide on the school that you're going to in the spring, let them know. Teachers really want to hear what you decided. They may not be able to stop you in the hallways if they see you, or if you didn't ask a teacher that you're going to be with in the fall, maybe you had them first semester, then, they don't have that opportunity. So send them an email, send them a thank you note after they write the letter, and then also follow up with letting them know where you decided to attend. Now, how do you do that? How do you request it through Naviance? Similar as requesting transcripts. You're going to go to colleges I'm applying to, and then you're going to go to letters of recommendations. Then you're going to select the teacher. There's a drop-down list. All the teachers at the school will be listed here. So you select their name. And then again, you're going to select all current and future colleges that I add to my colleges I'm applying to list. And then you can include a personal note, maybe reminding them again why you asked them, because as I mentioned, they're probably getting multiple requests, so they may not remember everything that you spoke about when you spoke to them. You may even email them, like if you've emailed them at some point, copy the email into there, or just simply say, thank you for writing my letter of recommendation. And then you submit the request. Now, some of you may want letters of recommendations from coaches or from religious leaders or someone outside of the school. That process is very different. We can only put in Naviance who works in our school. So if you would like a letter of recommendation from someone outside of the school, then you will need to get the way to contact them from the school. So whether it's the address, the admissions office address, or your admissions office email address, you will have to find that school's contact information and have that person contact the admissions rep directly. We won't be able to facilitate that communication, but that doesn't mean you can't use them for a letter of recommendation. They will just have to do it themselves directly to the school. Now, for a counselor recommendation, you wouldn't request your counselor recommendation through Naviance. We have a way of seeing that. However, many counselors also would like for you to email them or have a conversation with them somehow to say, hey, I need a written evaluation. It's very similar where we need 2 weeks as well, because we will be writing multiple letters of recommendation, as well as some of the other things that we're going to be doing with you for your college search process. So allow us 2 weeks to write your letter of recommendation. Now, also make sure, as I mentioned earlier, that your school requires a counselor recommendation. If they're saying that they want teacher recommendations, a counselor does not qualify, does not fall under that category, because if a teacher recommendation is requested, that means that they want to hear academic, they want to hear something about your academics. But if a counselor recommendation is required, that means that they're open to hearing more than what can be described on your transcript or what your teacher can say. They may want to hear about sports, activities, how well-rounded you may be, if there's anything on your transcript or application that needs some type of explanation. So that will be very different. So make sure that if it says teacher, that you're sending teacher, or if it says counselor or both, then that's different. When we send your transcripts, we send your letter of recommendation with it. So if you don't need a counselor letter of recommendation, make sure you are aware of that as well, because we can just send your transcripts right out versus having it wait 2 weeks for us to write your letters of recommendation. What we also ask is that there's an About Me tab next to the colleges tab in Naviance. And then there's a survey called the Counselor Survey. It's 7 questions that we ask for you to answer. And it helps us to kind of know a little bit about you that we may not have been able to find out through our meetings with you, or that isn't explained in your transcript. It doesn't have to be answered in any way, like any formal format. It can be bullet points. It can be, just small snippets of information. But essentially what we want you to do is answer those questions to the best that you can, because we will likely be using that information to guide us in our letters that we write. Now, once you request a transcript, these are all the things that we'll send. We'll send your transcript, which includes your senior year schedule. So again, it'll show what classes you're enrolled in. The school profile, which basically just gives information about our school, how rigorous it is, how many honors and AP courses we submit, our mean SAT scores, etc. Every school sends their school profile. We will send the letter of recommendation from counselors if it's required and requested. And then teachers will send their letters of recommendations once they're finished writing it. So they send their letters of recommendation, we don't send them, but they'll do it through Naviance. So as long as you submit your request, there's no issues there. We send your first marking period grades upon your request. Some schools may say, before I give you a decision, I want to see how you did the first marking period. I want to see how things went for you this year. And so they may require you to have your first marking period grades. If that is a requirement from a school, then we won't know that. You will have to make your request with your counselor and let them know that that is what they're asking. Now, if they say that they need your mid-year grades, which most schools do want, then if you've applied to your school through the Common App, that will automatically be sent. But if you've applied to your school through the website, then that is not automatically sent and we will not know. So you will have to let your counselor know that you need mid-year grades sent, and we will then send it out to them. So essentially, if you've applied through Common App, it's going to go automatically whether they need it or not. But if you've applied to the school directly, then you will have to request. And if you need first marking period grades, you will have to request that. A lot of schools are also shying away from transcripts and leaning more towards self-reporting. So schools like University of Pittsburgh, Penn State, Rutgers, they allow you to submit your transcript information yourself when you submit your application. That also helps with the application process because then you're not waiting you don't have to submit your transcript and then wait for your counselor to send it out. They can then review your application once you complete it. So what will happen is after we meet with seniors tomorrow, we will also give them a copy of their transcript. It'll be an unofficial copy. We recommend that you use that information to submit the information for self-reporting. You want it to match what your application says, you want your application to match what your transcript says. Don't use PowerSchool, use your transcript because that is what we're going to be sending. Because if you say, for example, you apply to University of Pitt, you self-report, you accept, what they're going to do is they're going to follow up with us and ask us for an official transcript. So we want what you put to match with what your transcript says. When your student gets their transcript, have them check for errors, in their grades or their GPA. And if there's any questions or anything, please have them reach out to their counselor as soon as possible. And the other part is you also want to make sure that they still put that school in the colleges that I'm applying to list, because there will be other communication that we need to have with that school that we would do through Naviance. So even if they're self-reporting, you still need to add that to the colleges I'm applying to list. Now, scholarships, where can I find them? There's a scholarships tab in Naviance, so that gives you a lot of different information. Most schools will offer you merit scholarships or financial needs scholarships. Definitely look on their website under like tuition and financial aid, because there are a lot of schools who also have links to other scholarships that they may use. And so that's helpful for you to know that I may not automatically be considered for scholarships. I may need to apply to scholarships. But there are a lot of schools that will automatically consider you for scholarship. You can also go to the FAFSA, or you can Google scholarships. And if you fall within a specific demographic, Google that. For example, Google women in engineering, something like that, scholarships for women in engineering. And essentially, you may be able to find some scholarships there. Most times, you need to look to see if those scholarships that you're finding outside of the school are renewable, because sometimes they're one-time scholarships. Sometimes they offer renewable scholarships. Every scholarship is different. But typically the school scholarships that are offered are renewable for each year. If you need a transcript for your scholarship, then email Ms. Sutherland, who is our secretary, and your counselor. If you need a letter of recommendation for your scholarship, email your counselor about that as well. But make sure you provide the address of where we need to send it, whether it's an electronic email address or a physical address that we need to send it to. So in addition to scholarships, there's financial aid that you can receive by applying for financial aid through the FAFSA. I think that stands for Federal Financial Aid. Sorry, the acronym is escaping me right now. But we also offer a financial aid night on October 6th at 6:30. It'll be virtual, just like it is tonight. It will be presented by an Arcadia financial aid officer. It's not for just students who are applying to Arcadia. This is something that they are offering to us as a volunteer support that can help any student who is applying to any school. And then we'll have a FAFSA completion night. The FAFSA completion night will be November 9th at 6:30. That will be presented by FIA. FIA is very familiar with the FAFSA process. That will be in person. So you want to come, if you have your own device, your electronic device, that would be helpful to bring that. But you also want to bring your documents, whether it's your tax information, proof of identity, things like that. Anything that you'll need, and you can go on the FAFSA website to see what documents you need for completion, but make sure you bring that as well, because you will be able to complete your application that night and submit it. Before you apply for FAFSA, both the student and the parent needs a FSA ID, Federal Student Aid ID. It takes a few days because they want to verify your identity. So if you plan to submit your FAFSA form on October 1st, when it opens up, start a few days beforehand to apply for your FSA ID so that you can have it by October 1st. And this link right here, fsaid.ed.gov, is where you can do that. Mr. DePiero, can you put that link in the chat as well? The FSA ID link. Thank you. Now, second semester, once that time comes, I know it sounds like it feels like it's so far away, but it'll get here before you know it. Still continue to focus on academics, avoid that senioritis that we have to avoid, because as I mentioned, all of this, your academic progress will be shown on your final transcript that we send to your school. So as I mentioned earlier, mid-year grades will most likely be required by the school, and you will need to request them if you didn't apply via the Common App. If you have been accepted to schools and you haven't quite made a decision, visit some schools. Spring break is an amazing time to do it because you have that time off from school already. However, make sure you sign up for it ahead of time, because a lot of people take that same advice, and then before you know it, there's no spots available. And then you also have to submit a housing deposit. That's to secure your housing. That may be different than another deposit that the school that you would do to secure your spot at the school. So make sure you know how many deposits, how much the deposits are before you make a decision. And your final decision needs to be made by May 1st, which is our college decision day. We ask students to come in repping their school through some type of gear or pennant or something, and it's really fun. And I believe that is it. Are there any questions, Mr. DePiero, that we were not able to answer? I see.
I'm looking at the open one now, but nothing I didn't handle.
Okay. So if you are self-reporting grades and Power School says you have a 98 for the year, just using this as an example, should the student say they got an A+ or an A? CHS does not use A+, which is why I ask. So the grade will be on your transcript. So whatever grade is on the transcript. So for example, if the student got a 98 and their transcript says an A, then that's what you're going to put on there. So just copy and mirror whatever's on the transcript.
Have apple.
Any other questions? That was a good question. Are teachers from Eastern available on the Naviance app? No, we don't have Eastern teachers right now on the Naviance app, but they do have their own system of how they communicate with schools. So I would recommend that you have your students reach out to your Eastern teacher, and they will explain that process there.
That goes for any outside recommendation. So if there's a coach, a pastor, a priest, someone from a club, anything like that, they can, if they're willing to write a recommendation letter and it shows the diversity and of your student, and how well-rounded they are, or they have something that they want to provide, they should send their recommendation letters typically directly to the admissions office which your school, for which your student is applying. So it would be nice, guys, it would be nice if you provided them that admissions email. And then they would then send their recommendation letters directly to that admissions office via email.
Thank you. All right, oh wait, I think I clicked on the wrong one. Oh, no, I didn't. So my son lost his National Honor Society letter. What's the best way to get another copy? Ms. Gleckler, have your son reach out to Ms. Gleckler. She runs the National Honor Society. If you aren't sure about how to contact her, contact your son's counselor, and your counselor can connect you with Ms. Gleckler. How early should a student start to apply for student loans? So the application for financial aid opens up October 1st. You can't apply before October 1st. Some money like grant money, et cetera, it can be on a first come, first serve basis. But loans usually tend to, last a little bit longer. But if you are interested in being considered for everything, including financial need money that the school may give, then you may want to try to lean as close to the October 1st as possible. But I think by the time of our financial aid night in November, I don't think there will be much of a difference if you want to wait till then.
Will it still be okay to send in an application even if the recommendation is being sent separately? Yeah, absolutely. Sometimes the timing of different materials doesn't always work. So sometimes your application will get there after a recommendation letter, things like that. They won't bring your application to committee until they have everything that they're looking for. So it's best to try and get them to all kind of go together, but it doesn't always work that way. But it's not a big deal. They'll bring you to committee or bring your student to committee once they have everything that they need.
And I'd say, just to add on to that, don't wait for that information to submit your application, especially if there's a deadline. And also don't wait until the last minute. We have seen where, and I know Penn State is kind of known for this, but we have seen where there's a deadline and everybody's rushing to get in on that deadline. And then the system crashes because everyone's trying to get in on that deadline. If the system crashes and your application doesn't get in, there's not much we can do about that if your application doesn't get in. So don't wait until the last minute. Don't wait for recommendations. Send everything as they come in. Your application will be considered complete once everything else is in, but at least if you got your main part in, that's better. Thank you. Just want to send a quick thank you to you both for this session. Really appreciate your time and knowledge. Any other questions?
We can hang around for a couple if some people are still typing, that's fine.
Yeah,
But
we'll hang around.
we appreciate you guys coming out. We should be delivering a similar presentation and material to your students tomorrow. If any students don't make the presentation or you have more individual questions to your student or to the family, please reach out to your counselor. We're more than willing to work with everybody.
And as Mr. DeAndre mentioned in the beginning, this presentation has been recorded and will be posted to our website. So if there are any questions that maybe, if someone maybe didn't get an opportunity to see it, or if you forgot maybe an answer to something, in addition to reaching out to us, this presentation will be accessible. We'll hang around for a few more moments if questions come in. Otherwise, have a great night.